Okay. This is the BRN meeting of Wednesday, November 8th, and we're now going to be reconvening an open session, which is item number 6.0. The next item will be item 7.0, which is report of the Administrative Committee. And on the agenda, the first item is 7.1. which is discuss and possible vote in exploring legislation regarding registered nursing student clinical displacement. Yeah, I think because we were in closed session earlier and there's some new people in the audience, I'd like to go through and introduce all of us once again so you know who we are. I'm Trandy Phillips, I'm president of the board, and I'm going to start on my right now and have the board members introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, welcome back. My name is Imelda Ceja-Budquitz, appointed by the governor as a public member.
Hello there, Pilar de la Cruz Reyes, appointed by the governor in the role of nurse administrator.
Donna Gerber, I'm a public member. I was appointed by the Speaker of the State Assembly.
Hi, I'm Dr. Joe Morris. I'm the Executive Officer of the Board of Registered Nursing.
Hello, Elizabeth Woods, appointed by the governor in the advanced practice role.
Barbara Yaroslavsky, public member, appointed by the State Senate.
Michael Jackson, faculty member appointed by the governor.
Okay, thank you all, and welcome for being here this afternoon. Before we go into item 7.1, I apologize. I'd like to take a point of personal privilege as president to thank the BRN staff and our EO because I have a really good announcement to make. It's been brought to my attention that when you look at DCA Healing Art Boards and you're looking at the statistics and the average days for formal discipline, one of the things that I know Healing Art Boards have been working on, the DCA wanted all of us to work on, and the board has been very conscious about working on, is the average number of days for before formal discipline. And in 2015 to 2016, we were at 716 days. And this is why I'm taking this point to congratulate our staff, because we're now down to 607 days.
Wow.
So thank you all from the board and as board president.
Great.
Yeah, and so thank you all for the hard work, and I know we're continuing to work on bringing that down even further. But the other part of the announcement that also I think is really important and to praise all of them is the fact that we're, of all the Healing Art Boards, of which there's many, there's 19 Healing Art Boards, and the BRN is now number 4. It's dental hygiene is number 1, respiratory care, physical therapy, and then registered nursing board. And this is based on DCA statistics. So when you look at the size of our board and the size of those boards, to be number 4 is really impressive. So thank you all for your hard work. Yep, right. Well, you can say that.
Which makes us number 1.
Yes. Okay. And now that we're done with considering the size, yes. Now we're going to go to 7.1. which is the discussion about registered nursing students and clinical displacement. And I'm going to have my vice president speak to that.
Okay, so Madam Chair, members of the board, and members of the public, as probably most of you all know, one of the responsibilities of the Board of Registered Nursing has to do with the approval of nursing schools in California and the regulation of nursing schools in California, the curriculum, and all of the details that go with that. I and others sit on the Education and Licensing Committee. The board itself has considered these matters every time there is a major curriculum change proposed by a school, every time there's a new school that wants to be approved in California. As the NEC staff know, Nursing Education Consultant staff know, we go through quite a rigorous process of evaluation of whether or not we should approve new schools or expand current schools. And it's interesting when you look, I'm going to give a little bit of historical perspective on this, but let me just preface that by indicating that this item is to really discuss the possibility of pursuing some legislation that would help us, we hope, if we decide that, would help us be able to carry out our duties in California in a continued, responsible, and organized fashion to make sure that as we move forward historically, that we're able to make sure that there are schools that are meeting requirements, that there mostly is very adequate clinical experiences for nursing students in the state of California. So I will be, at the end of this little preface, making a recommendation that the board consider exploring possible legislation. We're not going to be proposing any specific legislation today because it requires some research and some problem solving and some looking at what our options are before we come to a specific proposal for the board. But historically, let me give you a little perspective here. I looked back, for example, to 2002, the Sunset Review document that we did in 2002. And in those days, what California was worried about was the nursing shortage. We were worried about producing enough nurses. We were worried about the aging of the current workforce. We were worried about the aging of the current nurse faculty in the state of California. And the focus was very much on how to add pre-licensure programs in California and sort of ramp up. And ramp up we did. By 2010, we had gone from 101 programs to 138 programs in California. By July of 2016, we have 141 programs in California. I hope I got those statistics close to the accurate numbers. And so between, for example, 2008 to 2016, we added 21 new programs, 4 of which were public, 17 of which were private. So that beginning in 2010, after we'd had this rather large ramp up, we started also being advised that there were some difficulties with having enough clinical placement opportunities for student nurses in California. And it varied by region and area somewhat, but it definitely was identified as a problem for us to deal with. And it is the responsibility of the Board of Registered Nursing under our regulations and statutes to take clinical displacement into consideration before we approve expanding programs. So we really began discussion of those problems and those issues in 2010. And between then and now, we've done a number of things. Consortiums have been set up in different regions of the state to try to maximize the coordination between schools, each other, the clinical providers, the hospitals, the outpatient settings that provide clinical experience, to try to get all the parties to work together, to coordinate with each other, to make sure that there was some sort of cooperation in making sure that there were adequate clinical spaces. The executive officer and various committees of the board and various other outside organizations have met regularly and tried to sort of informally resolve problems with clinical displacement. Despite all of that, it continues to be an issue, and it continues to be something that we are held somewhat responsible for. So, for example, when we received the Sunset Review questions from the state legislature this year, there was there were a lot of questions that we had to answer in terms of what is going on with clinical displacement, what is the Board of Registered Nursing doing about it, what do we think we should be doing about it, and those kinds of issues. So, as I said earlier, we've tried certain things. We've tried the consortium issue. Historically, as well, as many of you know, the board has tried very hard in California, I think done an excellent job of protecting the quality of nursing education in our state. We had the court case involving Excelsior, which was a New York-based company that thought it would be a great idea to come into California when we were expanding and in need of more nursing schools and nursing school education opportunities. This particular company decided that, well, okay, let's do online nursing education, but why do we have to do clinical? And this board, between 2003 and 2011, challenged that and ended up in litigation, which had to go to the appeals court, but ultimately the court upheld California's right to say to some nursing school enterprises that, sorry, but you must provide for clinical education if you are going to be creating more registered nurses in your state. So we have a history as a board and as a state in wanting to maintain standards, wanting to make sure that those who want to become registered nurses, those who want to educate registered nurses, and then ultimately those who want to employ registered nurses in California do so in such a way that is consumer protective. And that's our focus as the Board of Registered Nursing, is to be concerned about consumers of healthcare in California. So we've worked very hard to do that, and we have a history of doing that. As I indicated earlier, the legislature has shown a renewed interest lately in whether we're doing everything that we can. And on the Education Licensing Committee, those board members who sit on that committee, we all know that this is a hot issue, and that it has become, I would say, in my own experience over the last year and a half, even more pronounced. And what we're discovering sometimes is that while we do not have the authority to require employers, hospitals, or other outpatient healthcare settings to accept nursing students, obviously it's very important that they do, and that they continue having an investment in educating the future nursing workforce. And our attempts to get the various schools to give us a good read on whether or not there will be adequate clinical resources if we approve or expand schools. Our ability to get an accurate read on that has sometimes been very problematic, despite the very, very good efforts of our staff. Our staff go way, way, way out of their way to, check everything, to ask everybody, to get information about what's really going on out there in the world of nursing education. But we've had, unfortunately, some indication of the difficulty in getting that accuracy. And so we are concerned about that. As a result, what I and Trandy, Madam President, have been discussing in the administrative committee is we believe that it would be prudent at this point to do a very specific research, to work with staff, and to more or less develop what our legislative options might be. I don't have those answers today. I don't think anybody does. But I do believe that if we do some concerted investigation, that we may be able to come up with some legislative ideas and with some potential legislation that would help the board, help the schools, facilitate the interaction between the schools and the providers, the clinical providers, i.e. hospitals and outpatient clinics. So what I'm going to suggest to the board and want to have also input from the public is that the administrative committee work with staff, come back to the board hopefully in January, if not January, certainly by February, with a specific proposal, which then could be debated, obviously, by the board and in public. So what I'm suggesting is that we consider taking action to investigate potential legislation.
Any other board members that would like to make comments? Is there any public comment? Please, if there is, come forward and be sure to introduce yourself and sit close to the mic, because we found earlier that if you're not close to the mic, you're hard to understand.
Is it on the side?
It's fine, both sides.
In the time limit?
We're going to do a time limit because we've gone into the afternoon. To make sure everybody's comments can be heard, we're going to have a 2-minute time limit per person. And could I have a member of the board, Mr. Jackson, be willing to be the timekeeper?
Yes.
Thank you. Your 2 minutes won't start until you start time.
Just a point of clarification. We represent Orange County nursing schools for ADN schools, but only one of us will speak.
Very
Okay,
good, but please
so-
all introduce yourself.
Absolutely.
That's not part of your 2 minutes.
Absolutely.
So we know who you are. We're happy you're
Maybe
here.
more than 2 minutes because there's only one to speak.
That's right.
Okay, excuse me. I'm Dr. Diane Ristelli. I'm from Golden West College. I am the Associate Dean Director, and we are in Huntington Beach.
I'm Diane Pestalacci, the Associate Dean of Health Sciences and Human Services at Saddleback College and the Director of the Nursing Program.
I'm Rebecca Miller, Associate Dean of Health Sciences and Director of the Nursing Program at Santa Ana College in Santa Ana.
I'm Darlene Fishman. I'm the Director of the Nursing Program at Cypress College in Cypress, California.
So who's your spokesperson?
I'll be the spokesperson, Diane Pestalacci. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this very critical topic for us all. We are here to strongly encourage you to vote to explore legislation and hopefully see legislation is passed to prevent clinical displacement. 10 years ago, the only pre-licensure RN programs in Orange County were at the community colleges. In the past 10 years, 10 new programs, pre-licensure programs, have started in Orange County. 2 private ADN programs, 2 public BSN programs, and 6 private BSN programs. In addition, several programs physically outside of Orange County currently place their students in Orange County clinical facilities. This has led to significant clinical crowding. In July 2017, an Orange County specialty hospital notified each of the community college directors by letter to notify them that as of July 2018, they would no longer provide clinical rotation placements for any associate degree nursing program. They stated that this was based on several factors. 1, the undue burden on staff due to the number of students who have clinical rotations at this facility. Currently, associate degree nursing students comprise 170 of the total 754 students, or 22% of the total students that are educated in that clinical facility. Since our programs have each utilized this facility for more than 30 years, clinical crowding is clearly not a result of too many ADN students. 2, They also claim that this decision was based on the Institute of Medicine position that the BSN be entry to practice. In fact, the Institute of Medicine Future of Nursing report recommends that 80% of RNs have a BSN by 2020. The Institute of Medicine also recommended seamless academic progression to higher levels of nursing education. In each response, all of the community college nursing, in response to that, each of the community college nursing programs.
I'm sorry, is that the 2 minutes?
That's the 2 minute
Well,
one.
you know, really, because there's 4 of them representing 4 places, would the board allow them to speak a little longer?
Fine with me.
Yes. Are we okay?
Yes.
Okay, then please go on. Sorry for the interruption.
Thank you. In response, all of the community college nursing programs have agreements with multiple universities, public and private, for concurrent enrollment, dual enrollment, or ADN to BSN completion programs. These partnerships promote BSN in higher education that is of high quality, readily available, efficient, and affordable. 3, the facility also based their decision on the fact that they don't hire graduates unless they have a BSN. We're not asking them to hire our students. We're merely asking they provide an opportunity for our students to have an education. Students from community college nursing programs typically are far more diverse and from underrepresented populations who come from the community and plan to live, work, and stay in the community. In response to the letter from the clinical facility, the directors wrote letters to the CNO to offer suggestions, alternatives, or other solutions to prevent the upcoming clinical displacement. The letters were met with little to no response. The directors then attempted to meet with the CNO of the facility. Initially, the meeting was set, then postponed, then canceled, but now is currently rescheduled to happen in December. The email invitation that they sent to us about this upcoming meeting indicated that the discussion would only address the potential of placements in non-acute care areas. The Orange County Community Colleges have had clinical placements in this facility for more than 30 and up to 60 years. Community college nursing has been integral in meeting workforce needs in Orange County, in California, and in key leadership positions at that clinical facility, across the state, and probably even in this room. Community colleges as public entities offer high-quality, effective, affordable education. We cannot offer graduate education, scholarships, or financial incentives to healthcare facilities in return for clinical placements in order to educate our students. To date, the local consortium has guidelines to prevent clinical displacement. However, apparently these aren't enough. The Board of Registered Nursing has increased requirements regarding new programs and the growth of existing pre-licensure programs in an attempt to prevent clinical displacement. However, apparently this is not enough. Apparently, this is going to take legislation. Thank you.
I'd like to ask a question based on what you were saying. Do you have any idea what percentage of those students that you were talking about that are getting their clinical education in Orange County come from outside of the county? Because you said there was a group of students coming in for the clinical experiences. Do you have any idea of what portion?
Are you referencing at the community college?
No, I'm referencing early in your work, when you spoke, you said that the Orange County facilities are undoubtedly educating the Orange County organizations, but are also educating students from other places that are coming in. And I was wondering what percentage, if you have any idea.
We have numbers and have a graph that we could share with you. When we look at the graph, generally there are campus locations. 5 of them are outside of Orange County and are in Los Angeles County. 9 are in Orange County itself, and one of the facilities is located in San Bernardino County.
Thank you.
So for clarification, the question was, I thought that the comments made were about training programs for people from outside of Orange County coming into Orange County versus educational institutions coming in. So the issue was, how many outside of Orange County?
We don't have disaggregated data down to the student level on that, but we do have regarding the academic institutions, and that's what we were referencing.
This is all very helpful, so I hope you will be sending this to the board.
We do have the number of students, per the different facilities, but we can't tell you that they're each from outside the county. So we could say that the Los Angeles County, there's 5 schools, and I would have to pull them out really quick. 30, 80, 120, 130, and 400 minus, what did I say, 130? Approximately 200 students plus 40 entry-level masters. A little over 200 students do appear to come from outside of Orange County.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this information. Like I said, we really would like you to send it forward to us so we have it.
We would be happy to. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment?
Hi, my name is Sandy Baker. I'm the Dean of Nursing at Riverside City College. Thank you for coming to our beautiful city. And are my 2 minutes started? I would just like to, although I am not impacted by this situation that is occurring in Orange County, it could well happen. We've been impacted in Riverside County as well, particularly by the private sector schools that have come in. So far, we've been very fortunate, but the main point that I want to make is the mission of the community college. The mission of the community college, which is taxpayer funded, is to produce a diverse nursing workforce which mirrors the communities. And that is what the community college does. That is what the community colleges in Orange County are doing. That is what the community college, my community college here in Riverside, which has 75% underrepresented groups. That's the population of my students at RCC, who you saw earlier in all the front rows.
You're wonderful.
And so what I'm trying to say is that most of our students are first college students. That's what most of our students are, older students. 50% of them have families. And so we serve people who cannot afford to take on the financial debt that many of the private programs incur. Anywhere from $125,000 to $135,000 would be an average for a baccalaureate education at a private institution, the local ones that I'm aware of. Our students cannot afford that mounting debt. Our students who are diverse and first college students need to get out into the workforce and complete their bachelor's degree. And I believe the answer to this problem is for the board to be promoting quicker and more seamless articulation programs so that those associate degree nurses can be duly enrolled and can get their bachelor's degrees within a semester or a year of their graduation. And that was my main point.
And thank you. And if you have any other things to add or you would like to send that information to us, we would appreciate it. Anybody else that would like to speak? Any other board member comment, or Dr. Morris, would you like to make any comments?
Yes, I think that this, of course, we know this matter has been going on for quite some time. I mean, again, I think it's imperative that not only the public and the private 2-year, 4-year institutions work together, but also the community partners. This problem cannot be resolved among academia alone. It takes a joint effort from the community partners as well, because ultimately, as you stated earlier, the buck stops with the community partners.
Thank you.
Before you finish, Madam Chair, I just wanted to compliment you for bringing this forward. I know that my frustration over the year that I've been on this board is what I've been seeing coming forward is that it's starting to be a pay-to-play opportunity for the professional workforce. And I would just hope that as a result of this study and the engagement to go forward with legislation, that the understanding of the broader community, whether they're in the private institution or the public institution, understand that those students that are coming forward from the community as first-time college students from underserved communities really deserve to have a fair and equal playing field, and they're not having that by virtue of the fact by not having a placement. So I want to thank you for pushing this agenda forward.
Thank you.
I have a question. Does your consortium that you have, because you have a consortium in Orange County, right? Does your consortium have any kind of policy that limits outside groups coming in, outside schools? Okay, and so the hospitals are not abiding by that, or?
That's correct. Yeah.
So they're ignoring the consortium rules and letting these people come in? Wow,
It's a good place.
thank you.
So, Madam President, I would therefore make a motion that the board authorize the administrative committee of the board to do additional research, to come up with potential legislative solutions, and to bring that back to the board as soon as possible, either January or February.
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any discussion on the motion? Anybody from the board? Anybody from the public? Then we'll vote, and we'll start on my right with the roll call vote.
Imelda Ceja Bedquitz, yes.
Pilar de la Cruz Reyes, yes.
Donna Gerber, yes.
Trandy Phillips, yes.
Elizabeth Woods, yes.
Barbara Yaroslavsky, yes.
Michael Jackson, yes.
Okay, then the motion passes, and we will move on to item 7.2. Item 7.2 is discuss and possible vote to change regulatory proposals to modify the California Code of Regulations, Article 2, Section 1419, renewal of license from an emergency to a regular rulemaking. And this is in regards to fingerprinting, so that we are currently fingerprinting people that are applying for RN licenses in California, but we do have people that were already licensed and we're now requiring that they get fingerprinted, so that our whole workforce in California will be fingerprinted. So Dr. Morris, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, in December, roughly November, December, it was brought definitely to the public attention. There was approximately 23,000 or so individuals that need to be fingerprinted, and since then, the board has worked aggressively to ensure that these individuals were contacted so that they can comply with becoming fingerprinted. However, in January of 2017, the board did vote to have introduced emergency regulations. And since then, the regulations have gone through the approval process. They're currently with the housing agency and waiting to be. I'm sorry, with BCSH to be approved. But I do want to say that the numbers are improving. We've gone from approximately 23,000 to roughly 6,500, and Christina Spriggs.
Mike.
Oh, you can't hear us?
You can't hear.
Thank you.
Like that.
And Christina can speak to the exact numbers are roughly. However, I'm going to say approximately 6,500 or so, and that number is fluctuating each week as we had new nurses renew their license. We do have a process in place in which we have contacted the outstanding licensees that need to be fingerprinted, and the board has taken legal actions to ensure that we are maintaining the mission of the board through our enforcement.
Good. So was she going to speak?
Would you like to speak, Christina?
This is not what I'm doing.
She said no.
Okay. All right. He gave the information you were going to give.
I mean, that's just a synopsis of it, Madam President. Without going into the details. We know this has been an ongoing issue, but I am definitely confident in our process, and to, within less than a year, to go from 23,000 plus to around approximately 6,500, those numbers are continuously dropping. That's a tremendous improvement.
Well, once again, congratulations to you and to your staff. We are doing a very good job. I understand that it's on a dual track. The one track is to notify everybody that needed to be fingerprinted to do it now. And the other track was to make sure that when their licenses came up for renewal, they didn't have an active license if they weren't appropriately fingerprinted. So that's on these dual tracks, it sounds like you've been moving very quickly. So my comment on this would be that I'm now wondering, it doesn't seem to be the emergency, because you responded to the emergency by setting up a way to actually track people and actually move the numbers so far down. So then the question becomes, what should we do about the rulemaking? So I'd like to look at this at the February board meeting. I'll look again at the statistics and to find out what the numbers are. If they've come down so dramatically now, we have November, December, January, and then going into February. Let's see what they are in February, and at that point in time decide what we're going to do as our next steps. That's my proposal. Does any comment from the board?
So I have a question.
Yes.
Congratulations for sure, are in order. But as part of the regular cycle of people applying for renewal, what period of time would you say it's going to be before, from the time we were asked to the time that it would be completed, that everyone that could be fingerprinted would be fingerprinted? Would it be another 6 months, another year? And maybe you want to extend that date that you're looking at the information.
Good afternoon, Christina Sprigg, Chief Licensing and Administrative Services. So the process we anticipate, we are notifying in advance. We do have a schedule set for notification to occur over the next 6 months. That will basically cover everyone through 2018. But in addition to that, as Trandy had mentioned, it is kind of a twofold process. They are also notified as part of their renewal process. So if it is an individual that we have not gotten to notify and they come up for renewal, they are notified via their renewal notice so that they have to submit the fingerprints prior to renewing.
Right. So I understand the system and the duality of the system. Mm-hmm. My question becomes then, at what point would you say that they're going to be you're going to be finished with this job anyway, without going through this emergency?
It's hard to say, because individuals are in and out of licensure. If they go inactive, they're not required to submit fingerprints. They could then potentially reactivate, which means they will be required to submit fingerprints at that point. It will be an ongoing process, but in looking at the bulk of our numbers that we were working on, we plan on having the remainder of the individuals we've identified through the process within 6 months. Now, granted, they will be notified within that period of time. That doesn't necessarily mean they'll submit their fingerprints within that period of time if they've gone inactive, if they've gone delinquent, if they're no longer in the state.
6 months.
Yes.
I think that's excellent. Thank you.
I do have a question about this. If somebody hasn't been fingerprinted or not fingerprinted properly, are they given a certain amount of time to get the fingerprints in, and then they won't get the license renewed if it's not in? How is that done?
So they're notified on their renewal notice if we haven't already sent them a letter. If they receive a letter, then they are given 30 days to submit their fingerprints. They're also, after 30 days, they're sent a second notice, which gives them an additional 30 days. After that 60-day period, if they haven't submitted their fingerprints, then they're referred to the enforcement unit for potential action. If they are renewing via if they're fingerprinting via the renewal process, they receive their renewal notification 90 days in advance. They have 90 days to get those fingerprints submitted prior to their renewal. If they don't submit them prior to the renewal is held and their license is not renewed until they submit their fingerprints.
Okay, practice.
Yes.
And I'd like to make one other comment on what she said, just because I think it's important. If it's people that are going in and out of licensure, like you said, where they may have been licensed and then they're unlicensed and then they come back, at that point we're still protecting the public because they will not be relicensed until they submit fingerprints.
Correct.
So if they currently don't have them submitted, but they come into the workforce, they won't be allowed to practice in California without those, correct?
Correct.
So we are catching those people in that way.
So anytime they go to activate a license, it is a requirement of holding an active license, and their license will be flagged, and any renewal of that license will be held. Even if their license is not expired and they go from inactive to active while it's still not expired, they will still be required to submit fingerprints before we will reactivate their license.
The other thing that I think is important about this too is you're concerned, Betty, about how long it takes. I was surprised to find this out. Explain to the board about how long it takes. Once, if I go in and I go to a place and I get fingerprinted and sent electronically, how long does that usually take before the board gets results?
It depends. So if with our newer applicants, with our applicant students, they have not been practicing as nurses. They can go to a life scan vendor, get themselves fingerprinted, and we could have the results usually within 48 to 72 hours from the Department of Justice. For a nurse who has been practicing, of course, they're washing their hands a lot. Their fingerprints aren't as visible. Sometimes it's a little harder to get a good fingerprint read. It may take a couple of times. We will usually still get the results within a few days. But if the fingerprints are hard to read by the electronic system, the life scan system, then it could take manual intervention by the Department of Justice, which could then extend the time that it takes the results to come in. But majority of the time, it's within 48 to 72 hours.
Thank you.
Which, if I may add, Madam President, as the board has been campaigning, and as I have been also actively speaking with various constituent groups around the state, nurses also have to take some professional responsibility. Renew early, renew on time, rapid results. I think that's a nice campaign, right? And so if they do, we have 90 days to correct this issue. So if they receive that renewal in the mail, let's not wait until the 9th hour of the final day, because there may be a glitch in the process. So again, taking that professional responsibility to allow adequate time to renew the license could help with the renewal process as well.
Right.
Thank you. Is there any more board or public comment?
I do. So there's all these notices, you're sending notices, but sometimes the nurses are just not getting it. I mean, it's like, they have my fingerprints. I don't need to resubmit them. And, and they're calling, I haven't heard from the board. Have you sent your fingerprints? No, they have them. There's really nothing, on the web page, and I keep insisting there is. So are we still having a lot of misunderstanding from some nurses?
So the notices that are being sent out to specific nurses are not just a regular notice that says, you may need to submit your fingerprints. It is a very specific letter that says the board has determined that it does not have fingerprint results for you. You must submit fingerprints. It is telling them that they must submit fingerprints. We do have information related to this on our website in our FAQs, and we are constantly updating that information so we have the most current information out there. Anytime we start getting a lot of questions, we try to update our FAQs so that it responds to the questions that we're receiving.
Yeah, I think unfortunately there's still a lot of nurses that don't go to our webpage. They're not looking at that information. They're still like old-fashioned. Anyways, that's just, I guess we have to educate them that somehow they have to go to our webpage and actually keep updated as to what's going on within the board.
Amelia, this is where the professional groups can also help.
Right.
I think helping to get the message out there to some of the RNs to check your Breeze account also, and go online and renew if you need it. And we have reached out to many of the professional groups has also helped with trying to get that word out there. But you're right, nurses have to be responsible in that sense of checking their mail, reading the content, going to the Breeze, and also checking their Breeze account.
And also, we've now moved to paperless renewals, so we are not sending that renewal notice out, that 6-page renewal notice out any longer. They now receive a 1-page that directs them to the board's website to renew and to Breeze to renew online. So hopefully that will now start shifting our website traffic so that they are forced to go to the website now, and they will hopefully look for that information and find that they're able to find answers to a lot of their questions.
No, I think it's a great idea. Again, we just have to make them go to our website, force them to go to our website.
We're trying.
Are a lot of these people who had fingerprints in the system, but they weren't the updated ones that you're supposed to have? Is that one of the issues here?
So it could be a number of things. It could have been that we didn't have complete results. We could have only had one level of service, DOJ, only DOJ and no FBI. It could have been individuals that were licensed prior to us even requiring fingerprints. There are still some individuals out there that may have been in active status and are now coming back active and reactivating their licenses, so they're now being required to submit those fingerprints.
Okay, so my question on this, and this is for Spencer, do I need to make a motion to move this to follow-up discussion at the February board meeting or next board meeting, or can I just suggest that?
Yeah, you can just table the discussion.
Okay, then I'd like to table discussion, and I'd like to, before we vote on whether to do emergency or regular rulemaking.
No. That will be until February. You'll table it and we'll discuss that in February.
I understand, thank you. So I'm going to table discussion of this item until the February board meeting.
Public comment.
There was, I'm sorry, I didn't see more public comment. I will not do anything until we have the public comment. And please, public, I know there's nurses in the room, but don't use our skills. Be careful.
Little step there.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Saskia Kim with the California Nurses Association. CNA would respectfully request that the board not approve moving forward with the proposed changes to
Excuse me,
section
Sasha, can you
1419.
speak louder?
Sure.
Into the mic.
Is that better?
Much better.
Okay. First, we would question whether the board has the authority to make the proposed change. As you know, the BRN is one of 27 boards that are specifically required under BNP Section 144 to collect fingerprints for the purpose of conducting criminal history background checks. But BNP Section 144 only requires that an applicant furnish to the BRN the fingerprints, a full set of fingerprints. It does not authorize the BRN to withhold license renewal pending a process over which the nurse has no control. In fact, we're not aware of any statute that specifically allows the BRN to delay renewing the license of an RN who has fully complied with the statutory and regulatory requirements for providing fingerprints. And secondly, CNA reviewed all of the other boards that were subject to BNP 144, and it revealed that no other board has actually interpreted Section 144 in this way, in the way proposed, to allow it to hold up license renewals while awaiting the results of the licensee's criminal background check. So as a result, the BRN would be the only board to interpret Section 144 in this manner. The other thing which you've already touched upon today is the necessity for this at this point. In our view, these are while the board may have previously approved the proposed change back in January as an emergency regulation, the 79% reduction we believe is a changed circumstance that eliminates the need for the proposed change to Section 114.19. So it's not clear why the proposed change is necessary, especially that the BRN is able to reduce and obtain the 79% reduction based on its current authority. So why then is additional authority needed, and what's the problem that the board's trying to address that's not already being addressed using the board's current authority? We also have practical concerns. So the website, for example, says that the DOJ delay may be up to 90 days. And so the earliest that a licensed nurse can renew online is 90 days. And so right then you have a situation where allowing the board to hold up a nurse's timely and complete license renewal based on that delay can set up working nurses for failure. And furthermore, the BRN already has the authority to discipline licensees who fail to submit. My final point would just be that we believe that the proposal would also violate Section 121 of the BNP Code, which specifically and clearly states that licensees who have timely complied with renewal requirements must be allowed to continue to practice during delays which are not the fault of the licensee. So we think this is inconsistent with that.
So thank you for your comment, and would you please make sure that letter goes to the board?
Yes.
Just send a copy to it also.
Saskia, please provide a copy to the staff.
Sure.
In the back. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you very much. Okay, so I would like to table this discussion for further discussion at the February board meeting.
I'll second that.
You don't need a second. You don't need a second to table.
Spencer, do we need a second?
No,
You can do it on your own.
Okay,
never
so
mind.
it's been tabled until February. So moving on to item 7.3, as a result of the rejection by the Office of Administrative Law of the Board's regulatory proposal to modify California Code of Regulations, Article 3, Sections 1418, 1423.1, 1423.2, 1424, 1426, and 1430, pursuant to Senate Bill 4466, Chapter 489, Statutes of 2015, Credit for Military Education and Experience, the board will discuss and possibly vote on whether to resubmit the modified package to OAL based on having addressed the issues in the rejection. Could you speak to that, please? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Stacy Berman, Assistant Executive Officer. So the proposal that you have before you is based on rejection by the Office of Administrative Law of the package that was submitted in accordance with Senate Bill 466. Staff worked with Spencer Walker, our legal counsel, to remedy the issues that were identified by the Office of Administrative Law, and we are now bringing this package back before you so we can we send it out for 15-day public comment and then send it back to the Office of Administrative Law to complete the regulatory process.
Okay, thank you. Spencer, did you want to speak to
Yes.
the concerns there?
Based on my meeting with board staff, and based on the language in the disapproval, I'm satisfied that we have addressed the OAL's concerns. So based on that, if the board agrees, the motion would be to approve the revised language pursuant to the disapproval, direct staff to resubmit the rulemaking to the OAL before the expiration of the 120-day period, and publicly notice it and the revised ISR for 15 days, and delegate the authority to the executive officer to make technical and non-substantive changes, and to take all steps necessary that may be required to complete the rulemaking file.
Okay, so moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, now is there any board discussion? Any public discussion? Okay, are people ready to vote? I will look voting, moving to my right. If you'll vote,
Imelda
please.
Ceja Beckwith, yes.
Claudia Cruz Reyes, yes.
Donna Gerber, yes.
Trendy Phillips, yes.
Elizabeth Woods, yes.
Barbara Yaroslavsky, yes.
Michael Jackson, yes.
Okay. I think you've moved in second and voted on, so we have that done. Thank you very much. Moving on to items, Stacy, did you have anything else to add? Okay, just check.
I'll be doing the next item as well.
Oh, okay. Moving on to item 7.4, which is review and possible vote on whether to.
No. Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Was
sorry.
there public comment on that? It's not too late.
She asked for public discussion.
Okay, there was none? Okay.
I asked for public comment.
Oh, she did. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so moving on to item 7.4, review and possible vote on whether to adopt the draft 2017 to 2020 strategic plan.
Madam Chair, I'm going to request to table this motion, given the time constraints and the length of time that's going to be needed to discuss it. So I would ask that this be moved to the next possible board meeting, or whenever you see fit to do it. And I would move to table.
I'll second that.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded.
Don't do a second on a table.
She tabled it.
I tabled it.
Yeah. Do we have any board comment? Do we have any public comment? Please come forward.
Okay, sorry.
No. Oh, I missed.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Saskia Kim again with California Nurses Association. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through the detail in our letter. Our letter, I think, details the number of questions and concerns about the draft plan that we have. Just want to raise a few items on, let's see, on page 11, goal 3.7, suggests that the board explore options for the board to becoming a CE provider for consistency, knowledge, and public safety. We would just ask that we have significant concerns about this proposal increasing the board's workload. The BRN has had difficulty requirements such as auditing CE providers, and so we question whether it makes sense to add this additional workload. Just jumping around quickly. Firstly, it's important to note that the draft document indicates that the strategic planning process is, quote, a joint effort of board members, board staff, and the public to identify key issues and create action plans for addressing those issues in the coming years. And bearing that statement in mind, the document lays out the strategic planning methodology and indicates that DCA's solid unit has conducted an environmental scan of the BRN, which formed the basis of the plan. Interestingly, they've also Solid has also done a scan of the Med Board, which was made available to the public as part of the Med Board's discussion on this issue. And I would just wonder whether the BRN's environmental scan will similarly be made public as well. And then as you can see from our letter, we have other questions and suggestions for improvement for the language, but since it's being tabled,
Okay, thank you. Please make sure that you give a copy of your letter to the staff. Okay, are we ready to vote? I'm going to my right.
Email to say Betkowitz, yes.
Pilar Dela Cruz Reyes, yes.
Donna Gerber, yes.
Trendy Phillips, yes.
Elizabeth Woods, yes.
Barbara Yaroslavsky, yes. I don't know what I'm voting on, but yes.
To table it.
You don't.
Oh, you don't
But it was-
vote
but-
to table.
Okay. Go ahead.
Typically, the president can table an item on his or her own. However, since that is not what took place, and Ms. Yaroslavsky moved that it be tabled, and it was seconded, therefore it does have to be voted on.
Okay, thank you.
Michael
very much.
Jackson, yes.
And so now I would like to do item 8.0, which is recess until November 9th, which is tomorrow at 9 a.m. And thank you all for being present.
Comment for items not on the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't on the agenda, Ms. Des. Is there any public comment that was not on the agenda?
No matter who does it.
Okay, then I will be putting the board into recess until November 9th at 9 a.m.